Right now at noon, charges are filed in connection to Coffeyville Walmart armed robbery.
And we've got an alert day today as high wind warnings go into effect. Wind gusts this afternoon pushing upwards of 60 miles an hour. And there's still a chance of a thunderstorm or two. We'll take a look at all of that coming up.
And for the first time, a former U.S. president is indicted. What former President Donald Trump's legal team is saying.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Prosecutors filed charges against a Southeast Kansas man suspected of robbing a Walmart at gunpoint. This is KOAM News at noon. I'm Tanya Bach. Topping our first 7 minutes, official charges are now filed in connection to last weekend's armed robbery in Coffeyville. On Monday, Coffeyville police arrested 63-year-old Lieburn Timmerman from Tyro, Kansas, during a felony traffic stop. He's now officially charged with aggravated robbery while armed with a dangerous weapon and property theft. Now, authorities identified Timmerman from surveillance images. And police say Timmerman pulled out a firearm, robbed the store clerk, and left Walmart with an undisclosed amount of cash. The Newton County Sheriff says a body found days after a garage fire outside of Racine. Chris Jennings says 51-year-old Biff Moore died from smoke inhalation on Sunday. His body was not discovered until 2 days later when the fire marshal responded to investigate the scene. Sheriff Jennings says there is no reason to suspect foul play, but the cause of the fire is still under investigation. And the state fire marshal says the Thursday morning fire that took the life of a Jasper County man was accidental. 42-year-old Jason Nally died in the blaze that destroyed his home east of Interstate 49, south of Baseline Boulevard. Crews say when they arrived at the scene, the fire was too intense for them to enter. Firefighters eventually found Nally's body inside. Well, Kansas Governor Laura Kelly issues a disaster emergency this morning due to the potential for wildland fires and severe storms. Now, this declaration allows the state to pre-position assets for a quicker response to any fires that may begin. Much of the state is in a red flag warning and high wind advisory today. And the wind is blowing here in the 4 states. Chris Warner joins us with a first look.
Yeah. As we take a look at our camera at 7th and Rangeline, we've been watching it rattle pretty well with some of these wind gusts. Those high wind warnings officially going into effect here in about an hour, and that's for those gusts of 60 miles an hour or more. Take a look at the MoDOT camera at I-44 and Rangeline. It's been shaking all morning, shaking even more now. We look at the camera at US 69 and 400 just south of Pittsburgh. It is thankfully firmly mounted, but look at the shadows from the clouds and how fast they're racing down the road here. We are still watching thunderstorm development taking place across parts of southeast Kansas. Now, right now, we've just got some showers out there, but we are keeping an eye on those. We also have the high wind warnings, again, going in effect for southwest Missouri, southeast Kansas officially at 1 o'clock, and they run until 7, and that's for wind gusts of 60 miles an hour out there. We also still have a low-end, strong to severe thunderstorm risk across the area. Again, like this morning, the tornado threat is not zero, but it is fairly low. We're not that concerned about that. However, we could still see some storms later this afternoon that could produce some large hail and maybe some damaging wind gusts outside of the wind gusts we're expected to see later this afternoon. Started yesterday off at 52, made it up to 61, well above where we should be for this time of year. So we've gone from well below to well above. 78 in Iola, 75 Pittsburgh, 78 Chetopa, 76 Joplin, 75 in Neosho, so very warm right now. We have that alert day. High wind warnings, wind gusts to 60. Otherwise, clear and mild once we head later into the afternoon, and then we'll start to cool down a bit for this weekend. We'll take a look at all of that, including those storm chances, here in just a few more minutes. Tanya?
All right, thanks, Chris. Well, security is ramped up now that a Manhattan grand jury has voted to indict former President Donald Trump. It's the first time in history that a former president will face criminal charges. Bradley Blackburn is outside the courthouse in Manhattan with the latest.
What's happened here is this is a case that would not have been brought against another individual in this country if his name wasn't Donald Trump.
A lawyer for the former president told CBS Mornings his client is being persecuted politically after a grand jury voted Thursday to indict Donald Trump.
This is an explosive event in a highly volatile time in American politics.
The indictment is sealed, so the exact charges are not yet known, but they are related to payments made to adult film actress Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. And there could be other issues, too.
We don't know what's in the indictment, so we could be looking at campaign finance charges. We could be looking at wire fraud, at banking fraud.
Republicans rushed to the current GOP presidential candidate's defense.
This is going to destroy America. We're going to fight back at the ballot box.
While Democrats said to trust in the judicial system.
Let the process go forward. No one is above the law.
The arraignment will likely be Tuesday. Trump is expected to surrender here and be fingerprinted and photographed for a mugshot. But as the first former president to ever be indicted, there is no real precedent.
You have Secret Service involved, NYPD, Court Officers Union, so I'm not sure exactly how it plays out, but we'll get through it.
With security a big concern, the NYPD notified all officers, including plainclothes police, to be in full uniform today and ready for deployment. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
Former President Trump is also the subject of other ongoing investigations, including the Department of Justice probes into the January 6th Capitol assault and Trump's handling of classified materials at his Mar-a-Lago estate. A district attorney in Georgia is also investigating efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election results in that state. That's a look at today's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Up next on KOAM News at noon, 3 men's teams are playing in the Final Four for the first time ever as March Madness spills into April. And later we're making fresh catch fish scampi in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen. Well, the road to the Final Four has reached Houston, Texas. 4 teams will battle for the NCAA men's basketball title this weekend, capping off one of the most surprise-filled tournaments in years. Jared Hill reports.
There are always upsets during March Madness, and often a Cinderella team or two, but this year is different.
The biggest win in Hurricane Hoops history.
3 men's teams are making their first appearance in a Final Four. That would be the Miami Hurricanes, the San Diego State Aztecs, and number 9 seed Florida Atlantic. The UConn Huskies round out a Final Four that left millions of shattered brackets across the nation.
The pinnacle, it's the top of the mountain in terms of what you're striving to give yourself an opportunity to play for a national championship.
UConn will face a huge challenge from a Miami team that knocked off powerhouse Texas to get to the big dance. Miami coach Jim Larrañaga has been to the Final Four before with Cinderella George Mason in 2006. He's helped pass those lessons on to this Hurricane squad.
Before the season ever began, you dream about that. And our players have been dreaming about it a long time.
Florida Atlantic has now won 11 games in a row, 35 for the season. The Owls will face San Diego State in another semifinal on Saturday.
We're not scared of any challenge. We love playing under the bright lights.
A lot of teams here have a chance to make history for their schools and for their city that they come from.
CBS Sports legend Jim Nantz will have a front row seat to all the action in Houston as he calls his final NCAA tournament after nearly 40 years.
I have just a huge heart-filled measure of thanks for being able to have the seat for that long.
He'll be there when the last team is standing in a tournament that has raised March Madness to a whole new level. Jared.
Well, Nance is not retiring from broadcasting. The 63-year-old will continue as the lead NFL and golf announcer for CBS Sports. But Nance says he is dropping basketball because he wants to spend more time with his family. Still to come on the KOAM News at noon, Mr. Food.
Love seafood, but not sure what to look for at the market or how to cook it? We've got some tips to make you feel like a pro.
We've got still some thunderstorm chances out there this afternoon. Very windy and a much cooler weekend on the way. We'll talk about all that when we come back. Welcome back to the KOAM News at noon on this finally Friday in the 4 states. We've been somewhat busy this morning. Nothing too crazy across the area, but just a lot of stuff that we've been watching. Let's start with the Skywatch Storm Tracker, where, believe it or not, this is now, if I've been counting through the morning since 8, the 4th round of little showers have developed across southeast Kansas. Now they're moving off to the northeast upwards of 60 miles an hour, but this makes the fourth round of some showers, maybe even a couple of rumbles of thunder up around the Fort Scott area since 8 this morning. Now we have our alert day today because of this. Starting officially at 1 o'clock, high wind warning, southeast Kansas, southwest Missouri through 7 this evening, and that is for wind gusts pushing 60 miles an hour, and they are already approaching that mark. Then we have red flag warnings, this zone through 10 o'clock tonight. For the rest of southeast Kansas, that's through 9, and then for northeast Oklahoma through 8 o'clock. Then we have a wind advisory for northeast Oklahoma through 7 o'clock. On top of that, what we are thankfully missing out on, but we are definitely thinking about folks out to our east, this massive area of purple is a particularly dangerous situation tornado watch. And you can see just how large of an area that this covers through 8 o'clock. And that is part of this significant severe weather outbreak that they've been forecasting for the last couple of days off to our east. These two pink areas here are the highest severe weather risk levels they can put on this map, and they do not use it very often, but they are anticipating a pretty nasty severe weather outbreak. But you can see back in our area, this slight risk zone still covers parts of southwest Missouri, northwest Arkansas, and a low end risk for parts of southeast Kansas. So the storms that we're watching out to our west could potentially still be strong. That's not looking very likely at this point, but if we did see a strong storm or two, while the tornado threat is not zero, we're not very concerned about that. But these stronger storms, if they get going, which they've been struggling all morning, could produce some larger hail and some gusty winds outside of the already gusty winds we're getting across the area. So if we look here, there's a lot of scattered rain on this, but this is where we're looking at the possibility of maybe a few more thunderstorms developing as we head through the late afternoon. Again, this is a very low-end risk, and it's not very likely. These storms have been struggling all morning. Hence why I mentioned that was the fourth round that's attempted to get going across southeast Kansas. It just hasn't made it. Our camera, 7th and range line. We got mostly cloudy skies, sunshine out there. This thing's been shaking this afternoon. Same with the MoDOT camera at I-44 and range line as the wind speeds are really beginning to pick up. And the one from KDOT at US 69 and 400 just south of Pittsburgh, apparently mounted on a very sturdy pole because it has not been shaken too much. Let's talk about those currents. Warmer than what we were thinking. 76 right now in Joplin. Breeze south-southwest at 31, already gusting near 50, and that's expected to increase as we go into the afternoon. 78 in Iola, 76 Fort Scott, 77 Parsons, Miami, 75 Neosho, Carthage. Just a very, very mild day across the area. Looking to make it into the upper 70s, and by later this afternoon, while we're still breezy, we should be mostly clear. We should also be mostly clear as we head through this evening, and before the cold front gets here, it's not going to be too bad. Once it pushes through, though, we're looking to drop back down to a low of 41. Going through tomorrow, sunny skies and a little bit cooler than what we saw today. So how much cooler is it going to be? Well, 58. So not nearly as warm. 65 Sunday, maybe some evening storms along and south of I-44. And then look at Monday and Tuesday. 80 degrees both days. Maybe an isolated storm or two Monday. We are watching Tuesday very carefully. We've been watching, speaking with Doug on this, we are watching the possibility of some strong to severe storms as we head into Tuesday afternoon and into Tuesday evening. So it's something we've been keeping a close eye on over the last couple of days, and we'll continue to watch as we get closer to Tuesday. But, I mean, it's late March, early April. We're looking at 80-degree weather and some thunderstorm chances. Something that definitely bears watching. Then after that, we drop about 20 degrees back into the 60s for Wednesday and Thursday.
All right, well, something to keep our eye on, that's for sure. I like the warmer temperatures, but not necessarily what always comes with them.
Exactly. It is springtime in the 4 states, and so we're getting to that point where we're going to start to see a few more opportunities for strong storms across the area.
All right, thank you. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. Thanks, Chris. Well, stick around. It's Fish Friday in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, and we're making a fresh catch fish scampi after the break. Looking for a change of pace from your fried fish Friday routine? Well, today Howard shows us a tasty option. It's called fresh catch fish scampi, in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
Every week, we seem to get more cooking questions from viewers, and we love it. So keep them coming. And here to bring us today's question is Lexi, our online editor. Welcome, Lex.
Today's question comes from Anna Campbell, who writes, I love fish, but I'm not sure how to tell it's fresh when I buy it. And once I cook it, how do I know it's done properly?
Thanks, Lexi. And Anna, great question. I'm sure lots of other viewers are wondering the same thing. First of all, if your fish is fresh, it should smell like the ocean. If it smells really fishy, that should be a red flag. And as for looks, the flesh should be bright, almost translucent in color, and firm, not mushy. If you're buying the whole fish, the gills should be red, not gray, and the eyes should be bright and not sunken. And once you get the fish home, cook it within a day or so, or freeze it. Don't just let it sit in the fridge. As for how long to cook it, the rule of thumb is 10 minutes for every inch of thickness when we're baking it. But the best way to tell if your fish is cooked, see if it flakes easily with a fork. And to get you started, why not try a standby favorite? It's simply white fish fillets baked in a garlic or butter and finished with a splash of lemon juice that makes this to die for. Want the recipe for what we call fresh catch fish scampi, as well as more tips on how to buy and cook fish? Then go online now. Thanks again, Lexi. And to all of you at home, keep those questions coming so we can continue to find you easier ways to say, ooh, it's so good.
We can find this recipe along with a lot more good food from the Mr. Food Test Kitchen online. Just go to our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Here's a look at our 4 state market prices.
All right, we've got an alert day today for high wind warnings going into effect here in about half an hour through 7 o'clock. That's for wind gusts pushing 60 miles an hour. In fact, Liberty Utilities is already reporting about 100 people without power on the southeast side of Joplin. Still watching the possibility of a couple of thunderstorms, 77, cooler tomorrow. Warmer Sunday, 65, 80 Monday and Tuesday, and watching another severe storm threat as we head into Tuesday of next week. So something else we're keeping an eye on across the area. So a lot going on, very windy today. Make sure you're prepared for that. And of course, we'll continue to track any thunderstorms this afternoon, and we'll keep an eye on Tuesday for you.
Well, Shannon described it this morning as today is a hold on to your toupee day.
And tie down your pets and kids because things are flying around out there.
That's true, for sure. What do we have coming up tonight at 5?
Well, at 5, new technology is giving a voice to patients who struggle to use their own. In Health Watch, we're going to check out a lip reading app that researchers say is changing lives. Plus, the show must go on. After 3 years of closed curtains and dimmed lights, students will grace the stage of MSSU's Performing Arts Center for their first show. We're going to check out the activities also held in McDonald County Schools STEM-a-Palooza, including a cardboard roller coaster. Doesn't that sound like fun?
Yeah,
Those
it
stories,
does.
a lot more coming up on KOAM News at 5.
All right, thank you, Dow. Thank you for joining us for KOAM News at Noon. We'll see you right back here at 5 o'clock.